It's one of those concepts we build our entire society on. The unspoken agreement that the person standing across from you is acting in good faith. We trust our teachers to educate our children, our police to protect our streets, and our politicians. Well, maybe not them, but there is one figure, one authority we are conditioned to trust above all others. A trust that is almost sacred, the doctor. Think about it. We give them access to our most private vulnerabilities, our most profound fears. We let them into our homes, into our bodies, and into the lives of the people we love most. When you open your door to a doctor, you are not just admitting a professional, you are admitting a symbol of healing, of competence, of life itself. We are at our most fundamental level completely at their mercy, and that is precisely why what Dr. Harold Shipman did is so profoundly unsettling. He was to all who knew him a pillar of his community, a respected family physician in the quiet, unremarkable town of Hyde, England. In the 1970s, and for decades to come, he was the kind of doctor you'd want kind, attentive and reassuring. He was a man who visited his patients in their homes, a throwback to a time of intimate personal care. He was the one you called in a moment of crisis, the one you trusted with your family's deepest, darkest health secrets. He was known for his calm bedside manner, his easy smile, and his reassuring presence. He was the kind of person who inspired confidence, who made you feel safe. He was in every single way the perfect monster. No one looks for a murderer in a place of healing. No one suspects evil in a man whose very title promises to save lives, not to end them. He was a wolf in a lab coat, and the very trust he was given served as his most powerful weapon. His story is a chilling look into what happens when the very foundation of our security is built on a lie, and how easily a monster can hide in plain sight when we're all so willing to believe they're here to help. He wasn't just a murderer. He was a betrayal of the most fundamental faith we hold. This is the part of the story that turns a simple profile of a man into a catalog of terror. Because Harold Shipman didn't just kill people, he did it systematically, methodically, and with a horrifying sense of detachment. His murders were not crimes of passion or convenience. They were a calculated and deliberate extermination. His methodology was chillingly simple and brutally effective. He used his position as a family doctor, a position of unparalleled trust, to gain access to his victims' lives and, ultimately, to end them. He would visit them in their homes, a familiar face bringing what they thought was comfort and care. He would administer a lethal dose of diamorphine, a drug he had easy and unquestioned access to. He would then make a note in their medical records, explaining away their sudden death as a natural cause, a heart attack, a sudden stroke, a peaceful passing. He was a professional, a doctor, and no one questioned his diagnosis. The victims he chose were, for the most part, perfect for his purpose. They were a population that society often overlooks. The elderly, many of them were women, frail and alone. Some were already ill, on their way out. This made his job easier. He could simply write a death certificate, sign it, and no one would bat an eye. An 81-year-old former mayor of Hyde, who was found dead just hours after Shipman visited her, he claimed her death was a natural cause, but the police, when they finally got involved, found a forged will. This small act of greed was the one thing that broke his perfect silent system. He operated in this way for over 2 decades. The sheer scale of the horror is what sets Harold Shipman apart from almost any other serial killer. He didn't have a single discernible motive. It wasn't about money for most of the cases. It wasn't about a sexual compulsion. It was, as best as anyone can tell, simply about power, the ultimate horrifying power of deciding who lives and who dies. He was the master of his own private universe, a god in a small town, and every death was an act of his own free will. His victims' names are a grim litany of lives cut short. Marie West, an elderly woman he visited 3 times before she died. Irene Turner, who was found dead in her chair just minutes after he left her home. Jean Lilly, the list goes on, a quiet, almost invisible slaughter that unfolded over a span of decades. Each one was a person, a life with a story, all reduced to a single line in a notebook and a forged death certificate. What is most disturbing is the sheer efficiency and volume of his crimes. He wasn't a sloppy killer. He was meticulous, clinical, and prolific. A 2002 inquiry estimated that he had murdered over 250 of his own patients, though the real number may never be known. This wasn't a monster who lurked in the shadows. He was a pillar of the community, a trusted confidant, a man who attended the funerals of the people he had murdered. The cold-blooded audacity of it all is what chills you to the bone. He didn't just end lives. He systematically took them, one by one, with the quiet, unassuming confidence of a man performing a routine daily task. His story is not just a tale of a single evil man. It's a damning indictment of a system that allowed it to happen. For years, warnings were ignored. Nurses, pharmacists, and even other doctors raised questions about the high death rates among his patients, but no one listened. He was a respected professional, and his word was taken over any suspicion. This was not a failure of a single person, but a profound systemic failure of an entire institution. He was the perfect predator, and his trusting vulnerable victims were the perfect prey. He was not a killer who needed to hunt for his victims. They came to him, trusting and unsuspecting, ready to offer him their very lives. He was, as we will now discuss, a betrayal of the most sacred trust in human society, and his legacy is a scar that will never truly heal. His perfect system, his seamless and silent catalog of death went on for decades. A man who had committed over 200 murders went completely unchecked by the institutions that were supposed to be watching him. The police never came knocking, and the medical board never questioned his high death rate. So, if his killings weren't what exposed him, what was? The answer is mundane, and frankly, pathetic. It wasn't his murderous nature that brought him down. It was his greed. In March of 1998, Harold Shipman was the last person to see his patient, Kathleen Grundy, alive. Kathleen, a feisty 81-year-old former mayor of Hyde, was a woman with a considerable amount of money. Hours after Shipman's visit, she was found dead in her home. Shipman, of course, signed her death certificate, and her passing was filed as natural causes. End of story. Except it wasn't. Days later, Kathleen's daughter, a solicitor, discovered a new will that left her entire estate to Dr. Shipman. It was a poorly executed forgery, a shockingly obvious act of greed that finally broke his streak of impunity. The signature was sloppy, and a close friend of Kathleen's, a man of law himself, immediately knew it was fake. This single, pathetic act of fraud was the only thing that finally prompted a full-scale police investigation. The police dug up Kathleen Grundy's body, and an autopsy found traces of diamorphine, a drug that had no reason to be in her system. The dominoes began to fall. As the investigation widened, the horrifying truth began to spill out. The police exhumed the bodies of 15 of Shipman's patients, all of whom had died peacefully under his care. All of them had lethal doses of diamorphine in their systems. This was not a few isolated incidents. This was a systematic, calculated killing spree that had gone on for decades. The scale was so vast that a public inquiry later estimated he had killed a conservative total of 250 patients, a number so high it is difficult to comprehend. Harold Shipman didn't just kill people, he murdered the trust between patient and doctor. He betrayed the most sacred bond in medicine and exposed a catastrophic failure of the entire system. The medical establishment was either too blind or too arrogant to see the monster in their midst. His legacy is not just a long list of victims. It's a permanent scar on the psyche of a society that was so willing to believe in a man because of the title he held. He was not an anomaly. He was the culmination of an apathetic system, and his story proves that the most dangerous predators are those who are invited right into your home.